Tara, welcome back to the Way of Champions, and congratulations on wrapping up an amazing career. For those watching on YouTube, you were just saying you're going to have to change your background because it says head coach, and I don't know what it's going to say next. Retired head coach doesn't seem fitting. Needs to say
Well,
something more.
well, I have retired, but I'm working part-time in the athletic department as a coach's coach and an advisor to the athletic director. And I think it's perfect for me because I speak with the coaches all the time, assistant coaches, and this is a really challenging athletic landscape. And I think that my experience in coaching, working with young people, working at Stanford, can be a valuable resource for our coaches and for our athletic director. And so I'm very excited about that.
What a brilliant move by Stanford to keep you on doing that. And we've had some other coaches, Hugh McCutcheon, who is the Olympic volleyball coach. They kept him on at Minnesota to do sort of the same thing. And
Mhm.
I what a great thing. I mean, I feel like for so many years in college sports, they hired a coach and then just, set him or her adrift and said, figure it
Right.
out. And now they finally realized just like a professor needs a mentor, coaches need mentors too, don't they?
I think so. I think mentoring is something that I'm excited about and, wanting to be a resource, be maybe just someone different than an administrator that can listen. And I've been on the front lines of this whole coaching and recruiting and, with all the things that are going on, just someone to talk to. And so far it's worked out really well. I've met with probably of our 35 head varsity coaches, I've probably met with 15 of them already. And,
Hmm.
I plan to get out and watch more practices, be available. I am taking the summer off. So I'm available by phone or Zoom, but I'm pretty busy right now with having fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, do you, you said you like it. Do you are you how are you developing your own skill set to to become a mentor? Because it's different than just being the head coach where you're the decision maker. Now I guess it's kind of like coaching. You're nudging people in a direction and sometimes making them think they came up with the solution themselves. But
I think more just I think be more a listener.
okay.
Just, listening to questions people might have, just listening to kind of what their concerns are, maybe what their issues are, things that are keeping them up at night. And, just trying to really be a facilitator. A couple of things I'm doing, maybe with the athletic department, with our coaches is, involving our business school. We have great professors at our business school, top people in communication and negotiation and, different persuasion, different fields that could help our coaches be better versions of themselves, feel more confident in situations and maybe think out of the box that would, really be helpful. So trying to, not just work in the athletic department, but work kind of cross campus with professors, and uh, helping our student athletes have just an A+ experience at Stanford.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing. Um, do you get any pushback, of a coach who hasn't had a mentor before, all of a sudden like, hey, you need to sit down with Tara and do this? Is it voluntary? Is it something they're all just being asked to do? I don't want you to have to share all the details, but like,
So,
yeah.
I met with, we have coaches meetings pretty much every month. And so in the last month that I was, coach up until May, I just did a short 3-minute kind of presentation of talking to them about, that I wanted to let every coach know that I was available to them, through email, through text, through phone, that I wanted them to feel very comfortable reaching out to me. But I'm not pushing. There's 36 varsity coaches,
Yeah.
and so I'm not saying I have to be everything to everybody. But I did, especially the new coaches. But I want them to feel comfortable reaching out and talking to me if they want to. I will be going to different practices. I will be going to games and meets and events. and organizing some things for the department, again, cross campus.
It's great. I know Jerry wants to jump in here, but I just want to, I'm just thinking as you're doing this, I'm thinking of this story, Jerry, of Pete Carroll, when he lost his job with New England or the Jets, and he went and he was an assistant with the San Francisco 49ers, and Bill Walsh was retired, but sort of in a similar role. And Pete just said, like, hey, and he went and had lunch with him every day and met with him every day. And it's like that was transformational in his own coaching. And he said to Bill Walsh, like, hey, thank you so much. I know your time must all be full. And Bill's like, no one else does this. Like, no one else comes and does this. And it's like, I just think, like, I hope all the coaches and maybe even assistant coaches realize what an amazing opportunity to learn, because we can get so stuck in our lacrosse or our soccer or our sport. And just like, I hope people, I don't know, I want to fly down there and just hang out with you for lunch one day.
Well, you're welcome to. I'm laughing because I would sit next to Bill Walsh in the coaches meetings and talk to him, and look at his doodles, and it was fun getting to know him. But I'm kind of one of those people that I'm always watching what other coaches are doing, trying to learn. I'm a copier, watching what other people are doing and learning from them. And so I think that some of the it might take a little while, and different people, I'll be a different thing for different people.
Yeah.
But it's already worked out that way, talking to our coaches, especially when we have a new men's basketball coach, we have a relatively new football coach who's only been here 1 year. And those, our new women's basketball coach, and obviously that I've worked with, and we need people doing really well. And so it's in my best interest too, to see them be successful.
Yeah, for sure. Jerry, why don't you jump in here before I
Well, I just
monopolize
have
the
one
whole
short thing
conversation?
to add to this great conversation already. Tara's having you here is really like what Stanford is having you do as well. And John and I are providing a forum for coaches to come to you right now and listen to what you have to say, and to really take advantage of, what is it, like 45 plus years of
45
amazing
years. Yeah,
45 years of
yeah.
leadership and coaching and observation, and couched by vulnerability and humility. And you're a lifelong learner. And already you've taught coaches who are listening to this podcast some of the key elements of being a successful coach.
Well, thanks, Jerry. It's a pleasure
Yeah.
to be with you. And I think there's some of the things, I do feel like I want to continue to learn, and I know I will through the interactions with a lot of different coaches. But I don't want some coaches to suffer things that I suffered. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
if I'd known this, or if I'd had this resource, and I would like to help them.
That's great. People come to me all the time and ask about my work, and I'm sure Jerry gets it as well, and or starting a podcast or things like that. And I always call it the $20,000 lunch. Like, here's how not to waste $20,000 of your time and
Right.
money. And so what a great service you're providing there, for sure. Um, so, Jerry was telling me this little story before we got started, and he said back when you were considering taking the job at Stanford, there was a story that you like to tell about your dad and his advice for you. Can you share? And we will kind of start at the beginning and work through to the end here.
Well, first of all, I really never planned to be a basketball coach, because when I was growing up, there wasn't such thing as women's basketball coaching, and no women were hired for men's jobs. So I majored in sociology at Indiana, and I planned to go to law school. But I did take coaching from Coach Knight, who was the men's coach at Indiana. And I did play on the team there. We had 8 regular season games. It was very different. We practiced at 7:30 at night because the men went from 2 to 7. And there were no scholarships. We bought our own shoes, and so it was a very, very, very different experience. But I loved it, and because I took Coach Knight's class, I could go to any practice I wanted. And so I went to every practice. I don't think he really thought someone was going to come to every practice, but I did. And I learned a lot watching practice. I loved watching practice. I love Indiana basketball, and I went to the games. And I got to know Coach Knight. And I think that then what happened was I thought I'd go to law school, but I'd take a year off. I went home at Christmas. After Christmas, my dad's like, "What are you going to do?" And I started with coaching my sister's team. And in coaching my sister, Marie, who did not really like basketball the way I did. I don't even remember her ever shooting at the hoop in the backyard. Like she played on the team with her friends. So my dad really kind of got me into basketball, even though when I was a young girl, he had told me basketball will never take you anywhere, because there was no future for it. But he said, if you're going to live in the house, eat my food, rent free, you're going to go coach your sister's team. And this was right after Title IX. And I learned probably really two important lessons my first year. And one was that parents are unrealistic. I'd come home and my parents would say, "Well, how come you didn't play Marie more?" I'm like, "She can't shoot, she can't defend anybody, she doesn't rebound." But the other thing is that, everyone is someone's sister, and that really, really important. Oh, sorry. Oh, I got a fire alarm going off here or something. Hopefully. So I learned that everyone is someone's sister, and that, as a coach, I think the most important thing is to really work as hard as you can to invest in the student athletes that you're coaching, and to truly care about them. And sometimes that's really hard, because they're not always easy. And that involves a certain amount of forgiveness too. But anyway, so then I realized I wanted to coach in college. I coached at Idaho, Ohio State. And when I was thinking about the Stanford job, my dad said, "Do not take the Stanford job. It is too competitive academically to be successful." And I told my dad, I said, "We just need like 4 players a year." And he hung up the phone and he said to my mother, "She will be unemployed, coming home, living with us in 3 months." So that, I have not done that. So
I have not done that.
Yeah. So that's a win.
Did you ever like poke the bear with that comment from time to time?
Oh, maybe when we won the first national championship, he came to that in Tennessee, and
Whoa.
that was pretty exciting to win that. And I think he realized that my dad had gone to Dartmouth and he had played hockey there, and he realized how competitive it was, for sports.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Jerry, you had a question here.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna change gears a little bit, but I love that story. I could hear it over and over again, and what a lesson for all of us to follow our own hearts and our intuition. And I think great coaching has a lot to do with the intuition and what feels right, and to follow that, and not to be listening to other voices. But what a wonderful story to encapsulate that concept. I get the lovely, wonderful opportunity to go to a lot of basketball and lacrosse camps in the summertime. I get invited in by coaches, and I'm real curious why other coaches are there. There's at least 50 other coaches at these camps, right? And so I go up and I ask them the question, "So why are you doing this?" And the most popular answer is, "I'm doing it because I'm a teacher and I got to make money and it's summertime, so that's why I'm doing it." So we have people who find a job in the summertime. I ask others, and they say, "I'm really interested in being a college coach. I want to do a coaching career." So they're looking at a career. But the people that are most interesting to me is, I'll ask someone like, "Why are you doing this during the summer?" And they'll say, "You know what? I want to help change the hearts and minds of these youngsters so that they can learn at some point how to be the best version of themselves."
Mhm.
Wow. I come away in awe of that kind of a statement. Obviously, what these people have is they have what I would say is a calling for the profession of coaching. And I'm just wondering, like for you, listeners listening to you, it seems like to me, having had the honor of being in your company, coaching with you, coaching and me there to help out at times, that you always had a calling. Help us, if you can, Tara, to unpack this concept of a calling and what it really means for the coaches out there listening.
You know, Jerry, I don't know that I don't know that it's ever been explained to me kind of as a calling as much as I've been called a hoop head or a nut about basketball, you know,
Fair enough.
just, you know, sometimes there's something about certain things that you, that just gets inside of you. You know, it's not a job. I've never thought of coaching as a job job. It is definitely a passion. I've loved basketball since I was in the third grade. Basketball has provided me with an incredible life. You know, when I think of basketball camp, no one works basketball camp for the money. You don't make enough money. It is incredible hard work. I do encourage young coaches that you want to be coaches to work basketball camp at a place that you'd like to work, because then a head coach will see you and will know immediately, are you motivated? Are you, you know, are you totally into it? You've got to be a little bit, you've got to have a screw loose to do this. Because it takes just an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of time. You have to be totally passionate about it. There's no foot on shore, foot on the boat. You got to be all in. And I'm very happy to say that I've always been all in about coaching and wanting to do. I'm competitive, not about winning, but about doing a great job. You know, being the first person in the gym, I would hate it when a player would be there before me and they're already working on their shot. I want to be there first. I want to just, you know, be the first one there, the last one to leave.
Do you, I mean, the question that pops into my head is, you know, over these 40 plus years of coaching, what does it feel like for a player to play for you? And right out of the bat, like it's like you need, like the non-negotiables for you are like passion and love of the game and hard work. Like what else? Like what was, you know, at the end a Stanford player, but before that, like what does it feel like to play for Coach VanDerveer?
You know, I think probably coaching players would fit somewhere on a bell curve of, there are, you know, people extreme. There are some players that love playing on the team that I coach, and there's probably some players that hate playing on the team I coach, you know, but I hope that the bell is curved towards the love.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, playing on a team that I coach, I want to help. I want, I took piano lessons. I started out trying to teach myself. So for 2 weeks, I thought I'm going to teach myself, and I was horrible. And I realized I need a great teacher. So I got a great teacher. And within a year, I was making a CD. Another year, made another CD, another CD. And people said to me, "Wow, Tara, you've really gotten good so fast. How'd you do it?" And I said, "I have a great teacher." And my teacher was able to take me to a place I couldn't get to by myself. And that's how I see my version of coaching, is taking players, taking teams to a place they can't get by themselves. And, you know, and then putting it together. And the things that work for me, like you say, the non-negotiables, the players that I develop the best relationships with are disciplined players, players that enjoy the journey of getting better. They love coming to the gym, working on their shot, working on their skills. You know, they don't have to be great players, but being great workers. I was never, ever the best player on any team I played on, you know, and I played with All-Americans, and, you know, I've coached All-Americans, and it's all about, to me, enjoying the journey and being a great teammate. Not that you have to be the best scorer or rebounder, but be a great teammate, and, you know, be someone that is willing to sometimes do things that other people aren't willing to do for, for the benefit of your team.
Mm. Is it hard? I mean, your love, your passion, that discipline that matters to you was obviously you as a player as well, right? And in your
Well,
first coach,
not really. No,
no, it wasn't. Oh,
no, I
interesting.
don't think so. I I don't think I understood as a player, like I didn't make the sacrifices to be a good enough player.
Mm.
I think I was lazy. I was never in great shape. Um, I was not a very good shooter. I love the strategy of basketball and I love playing basketball, but and I played a lot, but you always work on things you're good at, you're not always doing the things you can improve on.
Oh,
So I would drive myself crazy if I was on our team.
that's
I would be
awesome.
like, good, go to the locker room.
Oh my God. Well, that's so funny because like I think of when I started coaching and stopped playing soccer, I really struggled to coach players who weren't like me, which was really competitive and hardworking and stuff like that. Like, like how do you not care as much as I care? Did you
Yeah.
find any of that sort of struggle or?
Um, I think that, as coaches, I mean, it's our job, but it's our life. It's, wake up in the morning and, I mean, I would think about basketball, you know, pretty much all day, every day. And how can we get better? What players do we need? All kinds of, you had your checklist every day that you go through. And, players come to practice and they're not thinking about the offense or the defense or the recruiting or the scheduling or, whatever. Some of it is, they're just doing their thing.
They're thinking about the chemistry test they just took or
That that
whatever.
could that could be part of it, or their
Yeah.
flat tire, or whatever, their boyfriend or whatever kind of things are going through their mind.
Yeah. How has I think it's important to ask this question, Jerry, if you don't mind me kind of throwing it in, but like the big changes in college sports, right? NIL, and we'll get to that in a bit, but the transfer portal is
Mhm.
so huge because it has allowed players who reach that point in their career where they realize, wow, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, or coach is really pushing me and I don't like it because I've never been pushed
Right.
before, and it's an easy exit. And it didn't used to be, right? Like there was a lot went into a decision when you're like, I'm going to transfer and I'm willing to sit out a year to get out of here versus, I'm watching the Final Four last year, at least on the men's side. And there was a player who'd gone to 4 or 5 different
Wow.
colleges, and I'm just like, wow, you're just, and I don't know why he was moving and whatever, but, that moment, that where a coach gets to take someone to a place they've never been before is
Mhm.
always going to be uncomfortable and
Yeah.
difficult, and they're not going to want to do it. And when the when the exit door is wide open and they can just walk away, I mean, that makes coaching so much harder, doesn't it?
Well, I think, well, if I go back really far, when I played in college, there weren't any transfer rules, and I did transfer as a freshman to Indiana as a sophomore.
Mhm.
So, and I did not sit out a year.
Mhm.
I would have transferred either way because I was basically playing Division III basketball, and then you have Division I basketball.
Mhm.
But I think that in a lot of ways now, you have a whole recruiting process where you can have unlimited number of visits. So you can decide where you want to go based on going to the school, meeting people. You have all kinds of um, available, resources available to you to learn about your decision. So now when you're making a decision, it should be a well thought out, good fit to
Mhm.
begin with. So then why is it not a good fit after, 1 month or 2 months? And um, I don't know. I think that there, in some ways, like you said, it is too easy. And the people that are suffering are maybe the players themselves because they're not developing the resilience and the toughness and now if there might be some situations where it is just total non-fit, um, and that does happen, but Also, I think the lack of commitment to a team, to a program, when you if you go to 4 different schools and a lot of times they're not getting their degrees, when you're 20 years from now, what reunion are you going to? Who are your team? Who are your friends? And I think that's a challenge. So I know that, players that, they leave your program, they're not part of your sisterhood anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
Tara, I know you don't know this, but I'm going to say this to you. Having the honor of working with you at one point in my life, I learned a transformational concept that you taught me. When I showed up to be with you and your team, I got the sense that it wasn't a team. You had a family. And this plays right into what we were just talking about. How do you develop a family? By transferring 4 or 5 teams. You're not part of the family. It's like having a stray dog come in and then giving it to the pound and then getting another dog, and they don't feel at home. And the concept that I don't know if that's a good analogy or not.
I'm petting my dog right now. I've got 2 of them, one laying on either side of me.
Very appropriate. I love it. See, that
I
plays
love my
right into
dog.
what I'm saying. But seriously, I learned that, and that was a while ago, and from that moment on, I started seeing the teams that I worked with as, how are we going to develop a family? Like the culture itself is a family. Like, we'll do anything for each other. On any given day, I will go to battle and I will fight. I'll bleed for you because you're my son, you're my daughter, you're my sister, you're my brother, whatever it happens to be. And I learned that from you. And how powerful was that? And how does that play into how we're coaching today, knowing that someone could leave
Yeah.
tomorrow?
Well, Jerry, I'm going to take that as a tremendous compliment if that's something that you felt in watching our team and
Absolutely. No
seeing our,
question. No
seeing our,
question. Yeah.
seeing our culture. But,
Yeah.
it's, I also would say it's like a garden, you can't be a gardener sitting like on the bench or in a chair, in a rocking chair. You've got to be out there weeding and watering, and you have to work at it all the time.
Got to
And
let the sun shine in,
yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
little fertilizer every once in a while too,
Fertilizer. Yep.
But I think that the sisterhood, it seems especially important now. You read so many articles about the disconnection of young people. They're all on their phones. They spend so much. They don't have friends. They don't have people that they really trust and care about. And the best thing about a team is the connectivity that you feel, that you're doing things for and with other people. I always encourage our team, play hard for each other, and play with each other and for each other. And we've had 3 sets of sisters on our team, and I'm actually working on a book right now with a former reporter, Michelle Smith, and talking about kind of the legacy, the Stanford legacy, and a lot of it is about a very strong sisterhood, or like on different teams, a brotherhood, but that you will, and these sisters that I really coached, I mean, Nneka Ogumake and Chineye Ogumake, just phenomenal. They're going to battle for each other, and twins that they were so close and so competitive, but I never let them guard each other in practice. They'd go after each other, but that's what you're, I think, really striving for, is that family. And there are some times where, like any family, you have disagreements, you have challenges, you have battles that you have to fight, things that you have to talk out, really, really work to keep your circle tight.
Yeah, and that makes the whole concept of forming relationships and having good relationships to win that game is extremely important in establishing that, I would take, right?
I think that, when you're battling with people, when you're working with, when you get down to the nitty gritty of, I'm going to get on the floor for a loose ball, you're doing it for each other, because, sometimes you have to dig into that kind of reserve tank, and the reserve tank is your teammates. You've kind of spent your tank, you're tired, you're exhausted, I'm done. Nope, I can't let my teammates down. And I think that is a real that's a real important part of the championship teams, that they are, they're just so, so strong together. You know, the bonds are so strong.
Do you have to do you have to teach your Jerry and I had a long conversation about this recently because I used to work with the teams that I would work with, we would use this word family. And then I realized, well, people's definition of family is not necessarily the same, right? Some people come from highly dysfunctional families.
Right,
And so, you know, hey, like you said, there's going to be disagreements, but in some families, people pretend they don't happen and they wake up in the morning and just move on. Well, that's not a healthy family. So, I mean, there has to also be standards around in this family, this is how we do things. And
right.
do a lot of teaching
Well,
around that.
you know, there's been different times in, 45 years, but it's kind of funny to me that my last year, we did something that I think, I wish I'd known about maybe my first year, but
Wow.
we did a pact. And in the pact, we had the team basically established this pact, and one, number one was, open and honest communication.
Hmm.
And so, and we had and it was, it was showing respect. It, had like 8, competing every day. I could go through the 8 kind of points of the pact, and then we had everyone sign it.
Hmm.
And we had a copy of it in our office, in the locker room, and we brought it to practice. So in fact, and I'm not going to say that because of the pact, that it's perfect, but it did give you a little leverage to say, wait a minute, we need, here's number one, we signed this,
Yeah.
about communication, so we need to talk about this. So it gave you
Yeah.
an entry to talk
Yeah.
about things that maybe you wouldn't talk about ordinarily.
So some great coaching points there, right? So you can blow the whistle and you could point out, hey, number 7 on this list. Why are we not seeing this?
Right,
And throw
exactly,
it out to them. Like, what are we not doing here?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Brilliant. That's
I think it really helped, because I'm a firm believer that, I say this, you win championships in the locker room.
Hmm.
You know, if you have a close knit locker room, if you have people that, are not saying bad things about other people, or they're not complaining, there's a natural tendency of, oh, wow, we worked so hard today. And using that, and yeah, we worked so hard, and that's going to pay off, when we're playing, another, Cal or UCLA, whatever, whoever we're playing. But not, oh, we worked so hard, and coach doesn't like me, and I can't wait for practice, just, you take it in a positive way, the importance of positive, talk in the locker room.
Well,
excuse me, John, let me
yeah,
just throw in,
yeah.
this thought here. Just listening to you closely, when you're saying, yeah, playing Cal or UCLA, not going to be able to say that anymore,
Yeah, I know. Well,
right?
Cal,
It's going to be, well, we're going to be talking about, well,
yeah,
Carolina or Duke
yeah,
or something like that. How do you feel
the
about that? What's that going to be like?
all coast conference,
Yeah,
uh,
the All Coast Conference.
all coast conference.
Yeah,
I'm heartbroken. I mean,
yeah,
I've coached in the Pac-12 for 39 years,
yeah.
basically, on the West
Yeah.
Coast. I think it's ridiculous,
Hmm.
what football, the money, and that we couldn't, hang on to a great conference for maybe other sports, and, let football figure out what it's going to do. But, um, but going forward, I was really excited about competing in the ACC. And, the women's basketball is great. But
Yeah,
I think it's very sad.
Well, it's
yeah,
hard. I mean, it's hard, right? Clearly, the decision was a football decision. No one's
Yeah.
hiding that. And for a sport like basketball, with as many games you play, or as I think about like baseball and softball, when are you going to go to
Soccer.
class?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
untenable, you know?
It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I'm very thankful. I mean, but this is really affecting the whole West Coast.
Yeah.
It's Washington playing in the Big Ten, and Oregon playing in the Big Ten, and Cal and Stanford and UCLA and USC, and then, Arizona. Everyone is playing basically a national conference, and
yeah,
we're the ones that are a little bit of outliers. All the West Coast schools are going to be absorbing the most travel and the,
Yeah.
the longest travel.
Yeah. Yeah. And those, I mean, those, it's a whole new dynamic of preparing players when you're flying coast to coast and changing 3 time zones. And, if you're
Yeah,
going for a game, one game, right? Do you try to stay in the same time zone? And, I mean,
they've
the
got,
whole
yeah,
thing's going to be
they've got
so hard.
sleep experts working on that. I'm thankful for one thing for Stanford, we're on the quarter system so that basically it's only one quarter, and what I think they should do is maximize academics in the summer and, use that winter quarter as a very low academic quarter
Yeah.
so that you're not stressed academically and then you can travel and do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
use the plane rides for
Yeah, and
stops, right?
for the most part, basketball and football will be, men's basketball, women's basketball will be on charter flights, which in some ways they'll be shorter flights than when I played and we were on 11-hour bus rides or something.
Mhm.
And the other thing that's really interesting to me, now these young people now, they are on the go all the time playing somewhere. They're on this tournament, they're in that, as high school players. So they're kind of used to it.
Yeah. Though it's interesting, I mean, how to, so these are all challenging dynamics as well, right? These add to this. How do you build the family? How do you do this? I wanted to sort of, this idea of winning championships in the locker room, I think is great. And the pact that you did this year
Mhm.
that creates accountability. Um, I just think it's so important from an accountability standpoint when you say to a team, hey, this was one of our values, right?
Yeah.
This was one of our things that you all agreed to and sign this piece of paper. Should we skip practice today and sit down and change these? Or would you like to live up to the things that you asked for, right? Because they get to, like, how much did, like, it sounds like they kind of weighed in on the whole
They
thing.
wrote it.
They
They wrote
wrote
it.
it with your guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything in there that you said we need to add this, or did they come up with everything?
I think pretty much one of the coaches came up with one thing, but for the most part, it was all player driven.
Mm, mm. And again, now it belongs to them.
Yeah.
This
Right.
isn't, our coaches want
Ownership.
us to do this. Yeah, they have
And
ownership.
we had
Ownership. Yeah.
everyone sign it, everyone that had any interaction with our team. So if it was a consultant, if it was, our equipment person, if you're gonna be part of this program, you have to buy into our values, our way of doing things. We call it the Stanford way. This is the Stanford way. We're gonna do it this way.
Mm,
The Stanford standard.
And and it's challenging. These are
Yeah.
challenging times. You've got a lot of pressure on young people, whether it's academically,
Yeah.
socially. I think especially on women, with all the TikTok and Twitter and the social media, the ranking and all that kind of stuff, the likes. I don't
Yeah.
do social media at all, so
Yeah.
you're
if
not
I
missing out on anything.
I don't have time for it. I've got a
Yeah.
great life doing a lot of other things.
So
Yeah.
John, let me
Yeah.
shift gears here because I think this is really important to us. One of my favorite writers, researchers about leadership is Brene Brown. I'm sure you've heard of her.
Definitely.
Yeah, in one of her books, she advises leaders, right? Coaches, leaders,
Hmm.
whatever, to lean into vulnerability and resist the urge to armor up. Tara, what is your take on the importance of vulnerability when it comes to good leadership? I know a lot of coaches out there are afraid of it. They're afraid that they're vulnerable, they look weak, and so forth. But Brene Brown found that quite the opposite is true, that if you lean into vulnerability, uh, you'll be more powerful as a leader. What are your thoughts on that?
Jerry, I am not much of a like kind of wordy like label person, like some people say, low hanging fruit. I kind of lump all these like phrases, and I think you have to be real. You have to be authentic. You have to be yourself.
Mhm.
And when you think of how you relate to people, like the people you're the closest to are the people that understand you and know how you feel. Is that being vulnerable? You know, like with a, you know, if with a player, it's being honest and just saying, I'm disappointed that I didn't see, you know, to tell them how you feel. And, you know, just to be honest and authentic. And,
Yeah.
you know, being, not screaming and carrying on, but, you know, I would just say, you know, I'm really excited to be on your podcast today. You know,
Yeah.
this is an honor. You know, and just to tell people how you feel about things.
Yeah.
Is that being vulnerable? I guess
Yeah.
it is.
Well,
You know.
I remember listening to Steve Kerr one time on our we had him on our podcast, and we've had him in our conferences and so forth. And he said, you know, John, Jerry, he says, sometimes I have to walk into that locker room and look at the guys and just say, you know what, that's on me. I didn't prepare you well enough. I'm going to do a better job next time, and let's get going. You know, that kind of statement, uh, a coach saying that I blew it or I could do better, sometimes sends a message to the athletes that, oh, you know what? Guess what? The coach is human, you know, and
For
and
sure.
maybe that's ties right into what you were saying. That's being genuine. I mean,
Right.
to hide that is not genuine, isn't that true? I mean, it's sort of all
Right.
connected. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think that great relationships are built on trust. So as an example, I can go in, if the people in the room, in the Hoover Tower, in one of the offices, when I go to see Condoleezza Rice, George Schultz has you know, he was one of our
Right.
greatest, secretaries of state. And, you know, he said, when trust is in the room, good things happen. You know, without trust, bad things happen. So when you have trust in the room, then you can be authentic, you can be vulnerable, you can be honest. You know, you can say, oh, damn, you know, I made a mistake, because you're not worried. Your people are going to rally and lift you up, not leave the room and say, yeah, I told you that, you know, she's a dummy, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
negative thing. So when you trust people, when you care about people,
Mm-hmm.
when there's professionalism, when there are, you know, healthy boundaries, mentoring, all those things going on, then you're going to have, you can have those kind of conversations, and you can go further because you can then acknowledge a mistake and move on.
But he did say this too, and I know you'll agree with this, is you got to know your stuff. And if
Yeah.
you're out there and you're being vulnerable and you're being genuine and authentic, and you don't know what the heck's going on, there's no trust that's going to be built up there.
Well, especially like at Stanford, you know, the Stanford students are very intelligent. And so, you know, when you think of someone, when you think of leadership as an example, you know, you know, like it's you're good at something. You know, if we're all lost in the woods, and, you know, Jerry, you're the one with a compass and you know how to get us out, I'm going to follow you. You know, if we're out in a boat and you don't know how to sail, you know, John, you're like, hey, okay, Tara, sail, get us home, get us to shore. You know, you have to have you have to have the skill set. Yes, I would agree with that. You know, but that's kind of some of those funny advertisements are like, oh yeah, I got, I'm not a doctor. I just was on the advertisement, no, you got to know your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust is such an interesting and important word, I think, for coaches to understand where it comes from, right? That it comes from not just your skill set, but your relationships and connection with players, and a little bit of this vulnerability and believability. I was listening, Jerry. I didn't tell you this yesterday. I was just re-listening to an old podcast of ours with a guy named Owen Eastwood. He wrote this wonderful book called Belonging, and he's worked with South African cricket and the English national team and soccer and all this. And he said trust. He said trust is that your behavior is predictable. I can predict your behavior in a given situation or moment. That's when I trust you, right? So as a coach, in a difficult moment, one day you're not putting an arm around me and the next day you're flying off the handle, then I trust you, right? And so, I mean, define trust and the components of it for you, because I think it's so important, that consistency piece and all this sort of stuff, for coaches to be trusted by their athletes and their fellow coaches.
Right. I mean, I think that like as a head coach, it's trusting your administration, that your administration cares about you and has your back. It's trusting your assistant coaches and your staff. And then it's, trusting the players that, I mean, we know what it is, and it might be a little difficult to define sometimes, but we feel it. We feel that people trust us and we can trust them,
Yeah.
and that they're not going to, put you in, try to hurt you, or, use something you say against you, or, that they have your back.
There's a wonderful quote. I think it's Warren Buffett. Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's there, no one notices.
Yeah,
Right. But when it's absent, we're all like
right,
choking. Right.
right, right.
So, yeah. I mean, there's so many coaches that come to Jerry and I now who don't feel like their administration has their back. This is especially on the high school level, where if you have one or two noisy parents, it's just easier to fire a coach than it is to
Mhm.
deal with those parents who are going to the administration and making your life miserable. What's your advice to coaches about building that trust with your athletic director or your school principal or whatever? Because I think this is such an important part of the coaching job now.
I agree. And I've worked for some fabulous, fabulous athletic directors, and I've worked for athletic directors that I didn't have a great relationship with. And I think that we did better when the athletic director and I saw eye to eye. And I think it's very important. And a lot of what I learned that is kind of simple is to keep them in the loop, like no surprises. Um, we had a player quit one time and I was dealing with that. And then we went to the game and the athletic director was like, where's this kid? I'm like, well, she quit. So I learned, okay, so when that happens, just, email them, text them, just keep your athletic directors in the loop. Don't have surprises.
Yeah, yeah, and put them in the room if you need to in these difficult meetings or whatever,
Mhm.
so they know. Because again, I think a lot of coaches now, when I was growing up, if I had a problem with a coach, my dad would tell me go deal with it, right? In
Right.
high school, right? And then if that didn't solve it, maybe he might talk to the coach. But it I mean, never in my situation went beyond that to the AD. But now a lot of times a high school coach, the first time they hear is a problem is when some parent has gone to someone on the school board who then goes to the principal, who then goes to the AD, and the coach didn't even know there was an issue.
Yeah.
But it's been elevated to the top, and so it's such a difficult environment to coach in.
It
And
is challenging, and it's challenging in the college level too,
Yeah.
because the high school parents practice their negative behavior then, and then they get to college and they're better at it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have to, what we're all saying here, and for all the coaches listening, is we have to keep the parents in the loop too, right? And if there's any kind of change, our philosophy, look, this is the beginning of the season. This is what I really see happening, and this is what I
Well,
want.
I think some coaches, and we have done this too, having a letter, here are the expectations. Here's how you can support our team. Here's how you can
Yeah,
support your daughter. If you call me and want to talk about your daughter, I will tell your daughter and we'll have a, phone call with your daughter and you. And it's, just, parents trying to work behind the scenes. It's divisive, you know. So, and I have worked with tremendous parents too, and it's hard, just like I said, from the beginning, my parents are their parents too, and my mother will say to me, well, they showed the other coach more on TV than they showed you. And I'm like, Mom, who cares? you know. She's like, wear a brighter outfit. Your outfit's not, I'm like, Mom, quit it.
Did you ever I'm sure in the coaching, in the recruiting discussions, sometimes with, would you say, yeah, that kid not going there because of the parents?
Well, recruiting is such a artificial kind of environment. I try not to judge people during recruiting,
Mm,
and including parents. I know that they just want the best for their child. And I always, if I was recruiting a kid that had the grades for Stanford and had the ability to play Stanford, I always felt that Stanford was the best choice.
hmm.
And so, I wanted to work with them and basically here, kind of lay down the guidelines. This is how we do it. So, we have parents maybe that might ask to watch video every day. I'm like, no, we're not going to send you the video every day. Come to the games. You're welcome to come to practice. If you have questions, I would, but parents nowadays are just, they're too, let their kids be kids. Let them go to school. Let them, like we did the application. I said, we better not have done the application. It's better be them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we.
The we is no, there's no
Yeah.
we. Your
yeah,
child is, she's a young woman and she's going to fall down. Let her fall down and scrape her knee, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, that whole thing about adversity, like there's nothing scarier than a 20-year-old who's never experienced adversity,
Mhm.
because you're going to. And there's
Right.
a great quote the other day that parents, you won't always be there, but the mountains will. So let your kids learn how
I
to
like
climb
that one.
mountains.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah. Um, what, as we're getting near the end here, I mean, it just must, Jerry and I were watching the game last year when you broke Coach Krzyzewski's record for the all-time wins and the amount of attention. And obviously, you have this, anyone watching on YouTube, you have this beautiful, arena behind you. And I just, as you talk about your college basketball career, playing 8 games,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah,
now we're filling arenas. And I mean, obviously with Caitlin Clark and the attention that she was able to bring, and this year's final outdrawing, so many other major sporting events,
right.
male and female. It just, you have to pinch yourself of where women's basketball has, how far it's come and where it's going. Because I hope finally people are realizing that if you invest in this game, great things are going to happen.
And John, it's not just women's basketball. I think it's all women's sports. Look at,
Yeah.
they had a volleyball game with 90,000 people at
Yeah,
it.
Nebraska. Yeah, yeah.
Softball is like off the charts. People are watching softball. The Olympics, watching whether it's gymnastics or swimming. And so I think athletics and sports are for everyone. It's not just boys or not just girls, but if it's a great team, I want to watch it. And I just would like to also comment, I have met Caitlin Clark and her mom and dad, and what an incredible young lady she is to have the type of pressure that she's had on her and her maturity, how well she is doing, how phenomenal college career. And again, no one is perfect, but off to a great start in the pros. And the attention that she has brought to women's basketball is just something really, really special. And I'm very thankful for that. We talk about 8-game regular season schedule. I sprained my ankle one year, missed half the season, I mean, it's I have to pinch myself, and I'm jealous of the opportunities that these young women have now. And when I went, when I used to talk at basketball camp to the little 8-year-old girls, we'd have in the Kissick Hall, Jerry, you probably remember this one, in Kissick, we'd have,
Yeah.
80 little 8-year-olds. And I would tell them, I didn't go to basketball camp. I didn't play on a high school team or junior high team, or, they're really young, or I didn't have travel basketball. There were no scholarships, no basketball on television. I go, no pro basketball, no Olympics for girls. And they're just like, they look at me like I have two heads. And that
Hmm.
is a good thing,
Yeah.
because they expect it. and their parents expect it for them. But then one little girl raises her hand and goes, why wasn't it that way? And I'm like, how do you tell 8-year-olds why it was the way it was? And then I said, so can anyone else answer this question? And another little 8-year-old raises her hand and goes, sexism. So, it's really important that, that not just, that's not mothers, but it's mothers and fathers that want great things for their daughters. And that I call it, I live in a family I have a brother and I have 3 sisters, where my parents did not serve hot dogs to the girls and steak to the boys. And if we're going to serve hot dogs, it's everybody. If we're going to serve steak, it's everybody. If it's something in between, it's for everybody. And that's what we need to be doing for, I believe, our young athletes, male or female.
Amen to that.
Yeah, the hot dog steak analogy is perfect. And a couple of
I'm a
years ago,
vegetarian.
yeah, well, me too. I don't partake. I watch it, but what are we going to talk about? We're going to say you get the tofu or you get the peanuts.
Yeah, right.
But the
Well,
thing is, a couple of years ago, I remember you and I, John, I think you were there too. We had a conversation about the good work you were doing. There was an organization, and right now I just forget the name, but you were doing good work, and you specifically pointed out the difference between the men at the Final Four and what they were getting, and the women at the Final Four and what they were getting. And that had to do with the gym that they worked out in, the meals and so forth. So that's really what you're referring to, right?
well, it's been that way for a long time, and
Yeah.
8-year-old girls can point it out. But in 2021, when we won the national championship, there was the big brouhaha in a good way about the disparity between how the NCAA supported women's basketball, because it's all over social media, and how they supported men's basketball. And what upset me, I think, more than anything, was the type of COVID testing we did. We did antigen testing, and men did PCR testing. And I was over 60, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to get COVID, and it was, the weight, the men had a massive weight room, the women had a little rack. I mean, it was ridiculous. And so they did Roberta Kaplan and her law firm did an investigation, and basically came back with a lot of recommendations. And one of them is so silly, which you guys, you probably know this, or maybe you don't, but the use of the word March Madness for women's basketball. The NCAA did not allow that until after this basic, investigation. How silly is that? It didn't cost them a penny, but to use, the support of women's basketball. And, John, you already referenced this, but women's basketball tournament outdrew the men's tournament this year in terms of television rating, and it would be the Caitlin Clark effect. But I do think that, it's kind of like the saying, if you build it, they will come, and women's basketball, and Mike Krzyzweski said something really, I think, I thought very insightful to me. He said, Tara, he called me. I was on his podcast. He said, Tara, congratulations, on the record. And he said, you and I have had to, we've taken different paths. I've taken a road that was paved, and yours was not. And that's very accurate. It's it's potholes, and it has been very challenging, whether it's fighting for equal facilities or practice times, or resources that have always gone to the men, and now and it's hard for people to share things, and it's hard for people to have to sacrifice when they're used to having things go just any way they want it.
I
thought, I really appreciated what Mike said, and
That
what
was
he
wonderful.
also agreed on his podcast, if you ever watch it, was the fact that we both, whether it's Mike and I, or whether it's Dawn Staley, or Gino, or any of the top coaches, we're for basketball. Roy Williams, I've known Roy a long time, and we are for great basketball. Steve Kerr. I mean, coaches want a great game of basketball. and teaching the game and coaching the game and having it be a fun game to watch. So we're all in on, we're on the same team for that.
Amen. Well, I'm so excited to hear that like a Caitlin Clark is such a good human being, because she's going to be carrying a lot of pressure. She's going to be a lot. I think of her and, you know, Tiger Woods maybe saving golf at a time it was struggling, or, things like that. So it's, it's a pretty incredible thing. Looking back at your career, I mean, is there anything you would have changed or done differently?
Oh,
Done more of?
John, you don't have time on this podcast for all that.
That's why Jerry made me ask that question.
No, I mean, you make so many mistakes. There's so many roads that you could have, I could have, should have done that. I should have done this. But I think that overall, I can look in the mirror and just say I did the very best I could. And I'm very, I have great friends through basketball. I've traveled all over the world because of basketball. Basketball has provided me a great home, great opportunities, great friendships. So there might be things that I would have done differently, but I think all in all, I did the best I could at the time, and I'm proud of the, being part of Stanford University, a great university. I've gotten so many emails, texts, letters. The letters I've gotten from people are just like, I have a whole bag of them I have to answer. I haven't answered yet, that people wrote to me back in January, and I'm trying to, send them back one at a time. But I have to pinch myself to say, wow, this is my life. And I want to go forward and continue to be a great ambassador for a great sport.
Yeah. Well, you've been giving back all you've been given. And this podcast is emblematic of you giving. And those who are listening, I reach out to you. I'm so in awe sometimes. You get back to me immediately. I ask you, would you like to do this? And it's always yes. And you don't have to do this. I'm sure you have enough to fill your plate every single day. And to say yes to John and I, so that we can go forward and help you to make a difference in the lives of these people, is quite an honor. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity once again, John and I both.
Great to see you both. So have a great summer, and
yeah,
we're going to be.
But one, I have another question. We're not going to get rid of you yet. We have. Okay, so I know how much you love music. You're going to we had this conversation in the beginning. You're going to a Beach Boys concert. That's your way of bringing the West Coast back to the East Coast right now.
Yes.
So, but you mentioned how much you love playing piano, and I've heard you play, and you even gave me a CD. I think it was a CD of Christmas songs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's familiar. I have to ask you, what would be your favorite classical piece to play on the piano?
I'll be honest with you. I like to play duets.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorites are duets, and
Mm-hmm.
my piano teacher is a great teacher, and we had a ton of duets that we would play. And there's a guy named Diabelli that we would play like 10 or 12 Diabelli, and I did 3 CDs, and I probably have about 15 Diabelli duets on there, and they're beautiful.
How do you spell that name?
D-I-A, let's see, D-I-A-B-E-L-L-I, I think, Diabelli. Yeah, so if you look up some of their duets, I think it's I'm assuming Italian, but they're wonderful. They're beautiful.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I have to listen to that. Yeah, thank you
Tara,
for sharing that.
Tara, any final word of wisdom for our listeners here after 5 decades of coaching? Any final piece of wisdom you'd like to pass along to all of our listeners here about coaching, about life, about anything you want?
Well, I think, just enjoy every day. I would go to the gym and be so thankful that I was, healthy and able to, I loved going to practice. I loved going to the games, the practice, and, I'd go through every day and walk our team would be stretching on the court or, doing their dynamic warm up, and I'd go from one to the next and, high five each one of them and just, hey, let's have a great day today. Take it one day at a time and just enjoy it. And all of a sudden it's like, 45 years, where'd they go? So, it goes fast, and just, I want to enjoy it every day. So I'm still enjoying everything. I got up early, I went water skiing. I took my dogs for a walk. I'm going to the concert tonight. I went to a great lecture today, and I'm going to go to an opera, a 1 hour opera before the Beach Boys. So,
And you squeezed in a podcast.
I'm squeezing a podcast and living life large. That's what I like to do.
Live
Awesome.
large.
Awesome.
Great advice. Great advice. Live large. Here we
Tara,
go.
thank you so much for
My pleasure.
sharing today. We really appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
All right.
Wow, Jerry, that was pretty awesome right there.
Well, we talked with her before on a podcast, right? And we had her for the conference.
Yeah, we've had
And
her a couple times, but we covered a lot of new stuff.
this is different. Today was different. And before that, she was the head coach. Now she's not. And I think she's had a lot of time to reflect. But I learned some things. A couple of my takeaways is I really liked when she said, first of all, the fact that she's a lifelong learner and she's constantly learning. I think that's really important. To be a good coach, we have to constantly have that mindset that what else can I learn? She went to Bobby Knight's practice every single day.
Yeah.
That's gotta, like or not like Bobby Knight. The guy was a basketball genius. And so you've got to pick up something viscerally from that. The other thing that she said, a takeaway, I loved her concept about the pact. Signing a pact, signing it, somehow putting a name down there means so much more than just saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. And it's a deeper level of commitment where they talked about respect and honest communication and capacity, competing each day. And the third thing, John, is you win championships in the locker room. You and I have heard that before. And I have no problem agreeing with that. But hearing it from her, that was really special.
Yeah, because it's all about trust and relationships.
It is. It's all tied together.
And building that family and agreeing and holding each other accountable and having difficult conversations. Yeah, is amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing I just loved when we kind of came out of the gate and talking about Stanford keeping her on to mentor other coaches, and what an incredibly important thing that they're doing for their coaches. Hopefully many of them are taking advantage of, and assistant coaches as well, and whatever. Like, what an incredible resource that you have there. And
what's
I think
really
more
special,
schools are doing this, which is
they are,
important.
And what's really special, what people need to know is I worked at Stanford with many teams over the years, and what's really special about that place is it feels like a family. Just being on the campus, it feels like everybody's together. It's like this little oasis. And being part of the athletic department, it's all family. Like the lacrosse, I'm wearing a lacrosse shirt, right? So the lacrosse kids show up to the basketball game, and the basketball people show up, show up to the lacrosse game, and it's all over the place. And there is that sense of family, like they belong. It's the Stanford standard.
Yeah.
And that's why I threw that out there. But the Stanford standard is being part of a family, something bigger than any one of us.
Yeah. And even amongst the coaches as well. I mean, Tara talking about sitting next to Bill Walsh in coaching meetings, right? Because a lot of colleges now, football or basketball, operate on an island. Right. So they don't attend the same meetings, and they're not part of this. And you don't get to go into the football building and ask for advice or whatever. But I think of her, and I think of, Jenny Levy teaching us about, Carolina. You could walk into Roy Williams' office or Dean Smith's office, and that type of athletic department is the one that's going to have the most success long term. because all your programs are supporting each other. So
My favorite personal Bill Walsh story is I was coming out of a practice. I forget who I was working with, and I'm getting into my car in the parking lot, and the car right next to me was Bill Walsh.
mm,
He's trying to get out of his spot in the parking lot.
right.
And I waved to him, and he lets the window go down, and we had like a 30-minute conversation
Yeah.
about coaching. And
Right.
it evolved into that. Well, look, it's Bill Walsh, everybody. I
Mhm.
mean, he took the time. He didn't know me. I
Mhm.
just had a Stanford shirt on that said, yeah, I work with a team. So what? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
He had the time for me because
Yeah.
he felt I was part of the family.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's how
Amazing.
it works.
Well, again, everyone, thank you for listening today, and thanks to Tara VanDerveer. What an amazing coach, incredible career as a head coach, and now shifting gears, continuing to learn and support other coaches. It's just amazing talking about coaching support, Jerry. You and I are super excited for this mentorship and mastermind and certification program. We haven't released the details yet, but it's amazing how many people have signed up to get those details. So
How many people have signed up already?
I don't know, but
It's a lot.
um, if you're interested in that, please go in the show notes here. There's a little Google form. You just put your name and email there, and you'll be the first to know when we launch this. But this program is going to fill up given the interest in it already. So, yeah, you and I are super excited about shifting gears and working at a higher level and letting people,
Or a deeper
take our
level.
material and go make a difference. It's awesome.
Make it a deeper level because I think the work
Yeah,
we're doing, John, is quite high already, and
deeper
we'll
level.
take that same high feeling and that elevated emotional connection with the material that we're doing, and that's what really makes it work, right? You and
Yeah,
I were so connected to it from the heart,
yeah,
and people feel that and they want it, and I really do think that we're just going to go take it a little deeper. We've gone so deep in our conferences. This is going to be an opportunity to really bust it wide open
yeah.
with a more intimate group, people who are really online with the idea of let's take this out there to the public.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amen. Amen
yeah,
to that. In the
yeah.
meantime, everyone, please get in touch with Jerry and I if you want some bulk book orders and things like that. Tons of you have been getting the Champion Teammate this summer for your
Mm.
teams, for summer reads. It's been awesome to see those flying off the shelves. So if you want 10 or more, you can just email me, John at changingthegameproject.com, and we'll set that up for you as well. But in the meantime, right, just like Tara showed us, your influence is never neutral,
Never.
and it never ends. You can always influence people. So go out there, influence people in a positive way, make a difference, and we'll see you again next week.